It's patch day here in Marvel Snap. Oh, I love doing these videos talking about what is new and fresh, what kind of deck building we can really sink our teeth into, and we have a doozy of a video today. The devs inexplicably decided to add a significant amount of power to the best deck that already existed in the game, but we're going to talk about the Thanos buffs and what we might be able to expect in the future from him right in his place in the video. We also have the token shop cost of cards dropping down. Are the cards at their new cost worth the price? We're going to be breaking that down, or should you continue to wait for an additional drop and a sale? Stature is in the game. Should you be buying her? What kind of deck can you get started with her? We'll be looking at that. And for the most pivotal reworks of cards here, we're going to have decks for you to be able to begin building and take advantage of what has changed. A lot of buffs here, which I really do appreciate, though. We're starting out with the one nerf, the Hawk. Had been 4-1 going down to a 4-0. I don't think this nerf kills his list. He is still going to be fine. He has survived the Zabu nerfs. He really was just bringing significantly more power than other 4-cost cards were, and so just taking this half step off of him I think is fine. It brings him more in line with where we want to be. As we look to Devil Dinosaur, Ronin, the cards that beg the comparison with Hawk, because of his ability, he doesn't have a cap on. There's no cap on the number of cards in deck, at least not that you will hit normally. So he can still just scale to the moon, and with Thanos absolutely everywhere, especially after the balance. Oh my god. Thanos is just derailing me here. But the Hawk is a natural, he's a soft counter to Thanos because Thanos is going to have a much larger deck size, and then the Hawk is able to feed off of that, and that's still going to be true even into the later stages of the game, and especially if people are playing a lot of Lockjaw Thanos, then the Hawk game plan of giving them rocks, which are just these dud cards, it really succeeds a lot, so it's going to be a soft counter to that list. Go ahead, I still encourage people to play the Hawk list, especially in the current meta. The Mad Titan. From a 6-8 to a 6-11, now Thanos can win himself. It's crazy. What are they thinking? So the Thanos Lockjaw Valkyrie deck won the Snap Creator Clash tournament. That was the first high-profile in-person tournament that we have had. He's already been just shooting up in the meta, and the Quantum Tunnel did, and it really helped his popularity get expanded, but he was already commanding an impressive win percentage prior to that featured location, waking everyone up to what he can do. It's nuts. Now, Thanos, at 6'11", he's just 1 point behind the Magneto. There are cases where if you were going to play the Magneto, you actually didn't want to be rearranging the 3 or 4 cost cards that your opponent had set up, so you can just play the Thanos without him being able to get the buff. If he is getting the buff, he's becoming the largest card in the entire game, with some scalers outside of this, but he's going to be even larger than the Infinite. He's going to be hitting the 21 power if you have the Power Stone and all of the other stones played. It's actually cracked. I can't believe that couldn't they have delayed this change as they saw Thanos gobbling up the meta share and what kind of stats he's been able to put forward. That Lockjaw list with the stones in the toolbox really gives it an answer to anything that it comes up against, and this is just going to make this list absolutely terrifying. Sure, it brings Thanos up into range of Shang-Chi, which is, I feel like you have to be running Shang-Chi in the current meta as well, and so now you're going to be able to knock over the Thanos, but still there's 3 points. It does mean a lot. It does mean a lot. My consolation to myself, what I'm telling myself, is that this could lead to further examination and balancing of Thanos in the near future, where some of the Infinity Stones get tooled around, especially the Time Stone is very much an outlier, being able to jump your energy curve at the cost that it is, in addition to giving you card draw, etc., etc. So I feel like that's probably going to be the avenue of changes moving forward, is leaving Thanos up at the 6'11". So rather, my expectation is that this buff will stick, that they will not revert Thanos, but that in the future they will potentially change Infinity Stones to be able to keep his deck from just steamrolling everybody, which it's kind of already doing. Oh man, I'm going to be playing a lot of Thanos myself up to infinite. Now, Sandman. The most interesting change here, the most dramatic rework that we are seeing, going from a 4-1 to a 5-5, unchanged ability. It's kind of breaking my brain as to where Sandman goes from here, because he was already cropping up in this small subset of control in the meta share, where he was able to really just brick the heavy combo decks that want to be spamming a ton of cards together to be able to generate their value. Now, he has a lot more power on his own body, so you're not taking such a turn off in terms of tempo to be able to develop him, but you can only do it later in the game. And previously, people were even trying to ramp Sandman on turn 3 just to put the brakes on the opposing list right out the get-go. This is really going to hurt Sarah, a lot of the mid-range lists that we've seen. It can even hurt some of the discard lists that we've seen that are trying to be able to play a number of cards on the final turn to curate the hand down for a Dracula discard. And it can also hurt Deathwave that had cropped up and then kind of got squelched a little bit. Shuri is still fairly happy to be able to play on curve, just one card as she powers through and probably overwhelms you anyway, though she did have, if you play Sandman, Shuri then loses the flexibility of being able to just pass on 5 after playing Shuri on 4 and then develop the 20-point She-Hulk, the 20-point Taskmaster together on 6, which admittedly was completely disgusting, so Sandman is able to limit them in that line of play. And then Thanos, the Thanos Lockjaw also would have appreciated having the option to combo into that final turn, but once they hit the final turns, they do have a lot of expensive cards and big finisher pieces. Trying to fill up the board early, they see Sandman come in, and then they just finish off with some high-tempo plays themselves. So I think that Thanos and Shuri are still going to be fine, but this deck, well, what Sandman can do is the most interesting to think about. I've got a list here that has immediately come to my mind, and from initial testing has actually done very well. I'm sure as people will adapt, we're going to be able to optimize, but let's go to that. Calling this deck Sandman Quagmire, and it's Ramp Sandman with our gorgeous little Sandman taking his place alongside Leech as the card on the 5-cost price point that we are trying to rush for after setting up Electro. So the golden play for us is to be able to develop Sunspot or Ebony Moss, something high tempo in the early turns, Lizard as well. Go into Electro, and then we choose, do we want Leech or do we want Sandman? Both of them slotting in a very similar place, 5 cost. Coming out early gives them a little bit more impact. Both of them low tempo in terms of power on their bodies, but very high levels of control. Leech bricks the abilities of the cards, Sandman bricks the comboing of the cards. You pick which one you want to rock with, and then you roll into the higher cost possibilities. Dr. Doom, Odin being able to finish off, repeat that. We've got the Absorbing Man in here as well, because we're on such a pivotal on-reveal string with the White Tiger as another option. Trying to build a stack all for Odin to be able to reactivate. Leader had been the natural piece to fit in here. In the current state, I don't think Leader is good enough. I had been trying Zola as well. I don't think that is good enough either, but I'm very happy with this, and we have some changes to Absorbing Man that we're going to get to later in the video. So this is my early take on Sandman Ramp. It's done well for me. Again, would love to hear down in the comments what kind of decks have immediately come to your minds of being able to build around Sandman. His ongoing zoo with the Spectrum buff, I don't know if that still lives when Sandman is at 5, but well, we'll have to see. Now we have a set of cards that all have received very minor changes. We're going to try and cover these fairly quickly. So we've got the Spider-Woman going up from 5'7" to 5'8". It's really hard to it's been hard to fit her into lists, but now at the 5'8", if she's hitting a full block on the enemy side, she's up to a 5'12" stat line. I've been playing so much of the have some crap or junked up archetype that maybe she's actually going to push Doc Ock out of that list for me. It's going to be fun to be able to play around with. I think that's probably the only spot that she gets to live in. Also, if Thanos becomes really popular, Spider-Woman is just going to be likely good value because the Thanos Lockjaw list is clogging up the board so much. So having a high tempo play here in the Spider-Woman could be something that people start to adapt to just as a bit of a plug and play. Then we've got Namor. From a 4-5 up to a 4-6, he's buffed, but he's just not what I want to be playing if I'm deep into Series 3, collecting Series 4 and Series 5. If you're an early pool player, then it might keep Namor in your list just a little bit longer, but overall, I don't think he has enough to be able to get a card to solo win a lane like this. He's going to need more assistance, and now there are cards that are still data mined but not yet released that have effects like Mr. Fantastic and Claw to be able to project power to adjacent locations without having a body there themselves. If something like that comes up, I think that's what might be able to revitalize Namor into getting a spot in some decks, especially your ongoing Spectrum kind of gameplay. Being able to buff him up, I mean, he's still very efficient, but I don't think he's going to see play in the higher levels. Then we have Dagger, also a nice little buff, a cute card, but movement needs more help than 1 point on Dagger. Now, there had been a list that was running around of like a Goose, Dagger, Cloak, Beast kind of combo piece. And right now we've seen a little bit of a revitalized pockets of movement synergizing with other like control deck shells in the mid-range deck that propped up, popularized by Freddy Babes, where he's running the Iron Fist and the Vulture. Dagger might start finding herself in a place like this. I would honestly prefer seeing a full rework of Dagger, where instead of buffing herself, she does some kind of debuff to the opposing cards that she's able to trigger against, just to give a little bit more of a dynamic spread on the carries for that movement list. Hopefully movement gets more love in the future. I know there are Datamine cards here that are going to be able to help out this archetype, but if you give movement a try, just understand that you're probably going to be donating a number of cubes over to your opponent. It's a very fun deck. I want to see it succeed, but I'm not going to be picking it up because of this change. One more change to look at. This was a stealth buff hidden in the bug fixes area. Absorbing Man can now be doubled by Wong, Kamartaj, Odin. Oh, I love seeing this. So now he finally works as you would expect around these cards, able to get the multiplicative on reveal stacking that people dreamed of when Absorbing Man came in. Because he was recently dropped down into Series 3, it makes him a lot more accessible. A lot of the community, and myself included, have moved away from the Wong-based list because they're just so fragile to any kind of control. Stopped by anything that blocks on reveal, stopped by anything that blocks ongoing, stopped by anything that moves cards around even. But here with Absorbing Man coming up, these decks could deserve a revisit. I mean, think about it. We can go Zabu on 2, Wong on 3, anything with an on reveal on 4, and then Absorbing Man on 5, Odin on 6 to supercharge that stack to effectively infinite repeats for whatever we want. So we're looking at the cards in the 3 and 4 cost price point for what we would want to be replicated infinitely. Ironheart is obviously the best one, but we need a little bit more consistency here. Anytime that a card has an on-reveal and fits in those price points, I think that Wong deserves a revisit, and I love that this change is finally bringing Absorbing Man into the place that I think the community thought he was going to be when we were just looking and theory crafting around him. That's all of our balance changes. We're going to look at the meta as a whole, look at some future changes that we would really like to see for the health of the game. Also, the cards that have come down in series, if they're worth a buy, our brand new card, Stature. But first, if you guys have enjoyed this video and this style of video breaking down the news and the changes, the meta predictions, show some love to the video, help signal boost us with those likes and comments. It really helps us out a ton here. Our notable omissions. These are the 4 cards that I have seen the most tears shed over on the Reddit of cards that people want to be nerfed. Let's look at how they could potentially be fixed, or if we think that they're actually fine in the positions that they're at and we could see them just remaining in the state that they are in for the foreseeable future. Starting out with Arrow. Good old Oreo. Her control is so pivotal, and it is incredibly frustrating to lose to on the final turn when you have your cards ripped over into a sacrificed lanes that the opponent wins on. Tempo that they built up in the early game. I could go either way on Arrow. I could see a world where she just remains as she is, but I could also see a world where the devs feel like they don't want this to be one of the finishers as an option for players, and so then they give her the magic treatment, meaning that she's unplayable at turn 6. Hopefully, if they did that, they would go into rework territory, take her down in power, probably down a little bit in power as well, down in cost, so that she can slot in more flexibly in the mid game, something that makes her a little bit more accessible there rather than just locked to only turn 5 the way that Magic is. I think that would be kind of fun. The movement effects are way less pivotal in the mid to early games than they are at the very final turn of the game, so that's how the change might potentially come down, but again, I could go either way. Because I'm trying to level a free-to-play account to infinite every single season, man, I like some outlier cards like Arrow that are accessible in Series 3 to be able to climb with, and so she's one that I've been definitely taking advantage of myself. Then Dracula. A lot of conversation sparked around Dracula. It ended up becoming a meme of people saying how they would fix Dracula, because right now there's not really any hard counters to what he does. He dodges the Shang-Chi, he's not on reveal, he's not ongoing, he just happens. And if the opponent is able to accurately curate their hand down to a desirable discard target, Dracula's really, really potent. And with MODOK coming in as the season pass card, a lot of people were facing Dracula and getting frustrated that they couldn't really stop him. Now he has soft counters. Things like Magneto can move him around. Things like Maximus overload his hand so that it's not the exact card the opponent wants to discard. Things like, discard effects at the end. You can play stuff like Moon Knight to knock the card out of their hand. You can play stuff like Doc Ock to knock it to the board, etc., etc. There's a number of soft counters, but they're really not things that are popular in the meta, or things that decks necessarily want to run to be able to stop Dracula. All that being said, I think Dracula is fine in the position that he's in. He's a very fun card. He's the most flexible of all of the discard pieces, able to get run outside of lists that are designated discard. And then the designated discard list that he really charges up has a hard time running any kind of control against their opponents, so it's just a stat race. And sure, Dracula's good at racing for stats, but it's also a little bit high rolly if they're able to get their combos together. It's not completely taken over the meta right now. I think Dracula's going to stay in the state that he is in for a long time to come. Oh boy, Shuri and She-Hulk. Okay, these are the guys that I do really want to see changed. Shuri and She-Hulk are just disgusting. Shuri is nuts with what she is able to do, and then with how powerful just the armor and the Cosmo are to be able to protect the stats. It's gross. What Shuri is able to do by developing effectively nothing until the final turns of the game, but then still be able to produce enormous stat lines that are just untouchable. I hate it. I hate it. How would we change it? It's hard to say, because Shuri herself is just so straightforward. If she was smaller power herself, that doesn't really change things. You could make a more complicated mathematical formula of what she is adding to the cards so that they don't get scaled up quite as high, but that's not a very elegant solution. Like if you were not doubling but multiplying by like 1.6, but then you have a rounding question, etc., etc. I don't like that kind of change. The change that I actually do like is making her ongoing. You make her a Power Stone. If everybody's familiar with Thanos, the Power Stone is ongoing, fitting this criteria, makes Thanos plus 10. Shuri could be ongoing, makes the next card you play double in power. That way you just have the extra way of being able to take the deck down a step. You can either play the Shang-Chi against the big card, or you can play Enchantress against the Shuri, and then you still are able to disable it. It would also remove her from being able to get doubled off of Wong or Kamartaj, other effects like this. Not sure how it would interact with something like Onslaught. I wouldn't really want Onslaught making it more potent. The nice thing is that the Mystique trying to copy her would not be good, because the Mystique is 0 power herself. Now if you got power on the Mystique and then Shuri's doubling a powerful Mystique somehow, but then the Mystique is also doubling something else. Anyway, we're going down a rabbit hole, but I think the overall change would be more healthy because it would bring in additional counterplay to Shuri, and we could iron out the details later on. Now the She-Hulk. I think She-Hulk is just too many stats. I love her energy saving idea, the combinations that she has with the Sunspot, with the Infinite. The interaction with Wave feels kind of toxic, but I think the main thing is that if she just came down in points, then she wouldn't be quite as oppressive. If she came down to 6'9", I don't think anybody bats an eye. If she comes down to 6'8", maybe then she's kind of on the line. Right now, she's such an outlier as a Series 3 powerhouse. If you're running a budget deck in Series 3, you should probably be playing She-Hulk. There's a couple exceptions of lists that won't want to be able to fit her in, but overall, if I'm trying to build a budget list, I ask myself how I can fit She-Hulk in, and I almost always find a way. And then when I'm actually playing my games, I'm almost always happy that I have her in there. We'd love to hear your thoughts on potential changes and fixes down in the comments below. Now let's look at the cards that are dropping in the token shop. Should you buy them at their new prices? Coming down, Series 5 to Series 4, it's Silver Surfer. Wait on this guy. He's in the next 2 months is going to be coming down from 4 into 3, and with his recent balance change, he's no longer tip of the spear in the meta. Now, if you really want to run this list, you could spring for him, but I would generally discourage it. Null is, I want to experiment with him to see if he has a life outside of Galactus. I just really haven't seen it yet. So if you have Galactus, obviously you want to be able to pick up the Null. That list itself is kind of falling out of favor. People are finding it so predictable that it's not even able to gain cubes despite a exorbitant win rate. So be careful around picking up the Null. I wouldn't necessarily rush to find him unless you have Galactus. If you're looking for that Galactus list, Null completes it. And then the Hawk coming down. This is great. Hawk was almost a buy in Series 5. He was a buy in Series 5 when the Zabu was as cracked as he was. With Zabu taken down a peg, Hawk is still leading a list, and with how powerful Thanos is and how popular he is right now, the Hawk is a soft counter. He's going to be able to do very well. If you want to run that Hawk list, it's going to devastate the Thanos. So it's a bit of a meta read. It's a bit of a gamble if you think that meta is going to live long enough to justify running the Hawk. But that would be the angle as to how I would recommend him. If you want to be that counter player, then the Hawk is going to do excellent work for you. Sentry, now, sorry, he's bad. He'll still be bad in Series 3, by the way. Pass on that guy. Coming down from Series 4 to Series 3, we've got Agent Coulson, Maria Hill, and the Helicarrier. The agent category is getting filled out here with some absolute losers. Oh man, Maria Hill is just bad. I've really never seen a case where I've wanted to play her over anything else. The Helicarrier has a little bit of a niche application, especially right now with MODOK. You get some discard dino decks that are coming around that are also fun. So the Helicarrier has a bit of a cult following. If you're within that following, you're going to be happy to see it moving down, but I would not spend tokens on it. And Agent 13 is the best of the agents, by the way. That's why she was in my mind. Agent Coulson is probably the second best. Still not worth buying tokens. Don't buy any of these with tokens. But Agent Coulson, if you get him, I mean, if you combo the Quinjet and the Zabu, he's giving you some very energy efficient cards. And just that energy efficiency alone is going to make them good despite them being random. So Agent Coulson is nice to have, but again, do not spend tokens on anything, any of these dropping into Series 3. If you are very interested, if you already have Galactus, spend tokens on Null. If you really want to counter Thanos Lockjaw and you have the other pieces, buy the Hawk. Everything else, wait. Now we're looking at Stature. She's going to be the newest card coming here through a Series 5 release, man. I wish that we had more variety in how cards were getting added into the game, but I'm actually very excited for Stature behind Kang. I would spend tokens on Stature if I had enough tokens for Kang already, so Kang is my number 1 out of this month, and then Stature is the number 2 because it looks like she's going to allow us to play Black Bolt unironically. Is such a thing going to be possible? I mean, with a stat line like this, who can complain? Let's get a nice little, yeah, here we go. So she is a 5/7, but costs 1 if your opponent discarded a card this game from their hand. Incredible, 1/7 stat line is busted. So this idea that I have for the deck is taking a on-reveal shell with the value of the Wong, Ironheart, Odin, and the new Absorbing Man, the changed, unbugged Absorbing Man in here, with control against the opponent based around attacking their card draw and forcing them to discard. So we have, it seems really dirty if you could pull it off. Black Widow on 2. Spider Bite prevents them from drawing on 3. Then you wave on 3. That allows you to cheat out the Black Bolt on 4. The big cheat here is that all of their cards have been set to cost 4, meaning that Black Bolt will cause them to discard a random card rather than the lowest cost card. Much better in my opinion. Then you can copy this effect with the Absorbing Man, forcing them to discard yet again while playing the Stature at the exact same time on turn 5 because they would have discarded on turn 4, meaning that it's not even a tempo hit. On turn 5, you're developing 10 power and forcing them to discard. At this point, they're basically just top decking for the rest of the game to try and find pieces to keep up with you. You have the Magic and the Odin for some more consistency if you don't find this exact curve. Once I get Stature, I am going to be rocking this deck and seeing where it can take us. Very excited for Stature, actually. Oh, baby, the news don't stop. We have the battle passes revealed for March and April. In March, we're going to be looking forward to Nimrod, 5/5. When he is destroyed, he creates copies of himself at the other locations. We're also getting incredible art for Wolverine, Sentinel, and then the Pink Marshmallow Man and Nimrod. I'm very interested in what Nimrod is going to be able to do. Yes, when this is destroyed, add a copy to each other location. Being able to synergize with destruction effects, being able to synergize with Shuri. If you play Zabu on, well, you could set up Zabu with Shuri, whatever. You play Shuri on 4, you play a 10-point Nimrod on 5, you destroy that, you get it copied out there, you could destroy it with Zola, and that way you're getting actually 2 copies propagated out to the sides. You could combo in Magic or Destroyer, taking us into the late game turns, and just do some bonker opportunity. What I'm really scared about is that it could mean that a sneaky turn 6 Galactus would be viable, where you've set up Nimrod and then the Wolverine as well. Galactus comes in, takes the opponent by surprise from all the destructions. He ends up in a lane just on turn 6 with a Nimrod, a big Wolverine, and the Galactus. And if that's enough to be able to win based on the Galactus player potentially sending over goblins to make sure that the opponent is a little weakened in that location, it's just disgusting. I don't like where Galactus is at, and Nimrod might be able to fuel him to even more disgusting opportunities. Sets of Series 5 cards here. These are not nearly as set in stone as the Battle Pass cards are, but it's really fun to think about, and man, this set is hot stuff. Kitty Pryde, you can return this to your hand to gain +1 power. Excuse me? Bounce Bros? Bounce Bros is going to be meta with Kitty Pryde. I mean, that's nuts. Every time she bounces back, she's going to be able to empower the Collector. She's going to be able to just stack Bishop. She's going to be able to stack herself. It's crazy. And if you get Beast to return her, she would not gain the plus power, but then she would be free for the rest of the game to keep on bouncing back and forth and stacking up. Then you have the flexibility of rearranging her as well, buffing the Angela at the exact same time. I mean, I don't know if they could actually release her in this state. She seems so good for that suite of cards. Maybe they want Bounce to come back. Bounce had been living the high life when Collector was gaining +2 in the meta. Kitty Pryde would take it back right up there, like right back up there. I would have to buy Kitty Pryde, I think, with how much I love Bounce, but all these other cards are so good too. Negasonic Teenage Warhead, incredible control. When any card is played here, destroy this card and that card. Just a lockout on turn 5 to say, hey, I'm winning. And whatever you play next, it better be something that you're okay getting sacrificed. Maybe even plays alongside Null. Maybe this wakes Null out of Galactus with another way to be able to destroy pieces. I'm not sure, but it's going to be very fun to play around with. And then Master Mold. I might actually be equally as excited for Master Mold as I am with Kitty Pryde. On reveal, add 2 Sentinels to your opponent's hand. Yeah. We give them cards in their hand, but the Sentinels always come back to hand as well. The opponent can never get rid of them. Ronan is laughs in Ronan the Accuser. It is a 2/2. I would love that, and I can't wait to try and play the hand attack deck style with Master Mold. Shooting right ahead to April. The April Battle Pass has been datamined as well. It's Hitmonkey. We're also getting, it's all animal themed. So we've got Hitmonkey, Goose, Cosmo. The art here is pretty sick, and let me tell you guys, I am hyped for Hitmonkey. 3/0 on reveal, gain +3 power for each other card you played this turn. Oh man, you remember how we said Kitty Pryde was good with Bounce? Hitmonkey is good with Bounce. Hitmonkey is good with Thanos. Hitmonkey is good with so many things. If you can get these free cards, did I say 3/0? He's a 2/0. You just can combo him with all these pieces, stack up his power, and he's just so efficient in these decks that are trying to combo a lot of pieces together. Now, of course, then, if he really becomes a big piece of the meta, Sandman is going to just wake up and slap him down. So there's certainly counterplay. I'm not too terrified of him running away with things, but he seems incredibly fun to play with. And then in Series 5, our set here is actually short, the full 3 cards. We're going to be looking for more cards coming out. We really don't know if these are going to be releasing alongside, but the potential we have is getting Snow Guard, a 1/2. If you haven't played this by turn 3, it transforms into a random spirit animal in hand. And then the spirit animals, I mean, again, these are all subject to change, but let's go ahead and jump over here and see the connected cards. You have a Snow Guard bear and a hawk, and then you have the wolf that's considered a work in progress. The data mine is very incomplete on this card. It looks terrible. I hope that it changes around. I don't think it could release in this state. Then we have Jeff, the baby land shark. 2/3, nothing can stop you from playing this anywhere if there is space. I actually really like this idea. Jeff is able to just kind of sneak in next to Professor X. Jeff is able to sneak in through Spider-Man. A fun tech card, but he's not going to be meta. There's no way that he could be meta. These control cards are not as popular right now to warrant ever running Jeff, but he's fun to think about. Oh my gosh, I think we have finally got caught up with all the Snap news that just dropped. Huge changes coming around. Stay tuned to the channel. We're going to be looking at the reworked cards, testing them out on stream. We're getting a new featured location tonight as well. It is nuts here. It is so exciting to be looking ahead to what is to come. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what the highlights are, what really stands out to you in the comments down below. Till next time, thank you guys for watching. Keep on snapping.